Behind the scenes, some of the polling data that's been coming out has apparently been grading on Donald Trump. When presented with polls being done by the RNC and other internal Republican organizations, he apparently responded recently by saying, "I'm not effing losing to Joe Biden," he reportedly said. This is on a call with Parscale, that's his campaign coordinator. According to multiple sources, he started cursing at him. He also apparently is threatening to sue him, which is interesting. I've never heard of somebody that feels like some temporarily bad polling is suable, and that if a person were to be sued, it would be your campaign manager. What? You don't have more of a direct control over your polling, Donald Trump, than the guy who's like working on your campaign?
Right, but when he says I'm going to sue you, it's essentially I'm going to start a litigation that prevents me from paying you the money that I have agreed to pay you in the future, or that you already invoiced me for and I haven't done it. Like, that's specifically it. He is trying to do that thing where he's like looking over to see if there's a scratch on something he bought. So he's like, I get to keep it, right? But I'm not paying you because there's a scratch on it. Like,
exactly.
That's what he's doing.
I ate the cake, but there was a hair on it before I ate it.
Exactly. That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, he denies that happened. He says that he did not say that he was going to sue him. I guess the multiple sources are just making it up. And I'm not saying that he actually wants to. He doesn't have. He's got like a goldfish memory. Like, he experiences wild outbursts and emotional tantrums, and then he moves on. He hates people, and then he likes them again. It's all contingent on what they're doing for him in the moment. So it could have both happened, and he's best friends with him again.
The goldfish memory thing is so perfect because isn't during either Finding Nemo or Finding Dory, isn't one of the things that Dory does is repeat the same things over and over again in a row to keep them in her mind so that she won't forget like her near-term tasks?
Yes.
That is exactly what Trump does with his Twitter feed. It's like Sleepy Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe Biden, Mexico, 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 Sleepy Joe Biden, Mexico, China, Sleepy Joe Biden, Mexico, China, Mexico. Like, that is it. And he keeps like 4 messages that take 7 total maximum seconds to repeat, so he doesn't forget any of them.
Yeah,
and if one drops off, Russia, 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 he'll forget it for a long time. Russia, Russia, Russia won't be there. He's replaced it with China, China, China.
Yeah.
And he's keeping his little Dory brain full.
Exactly. That should be a video. That's a good analogy. So look, the reason I want to talk about this was not just to mention the fact that he's apparently mad at his campaign manager, or was briefly. And it's not even that the polling necessarily matters too much. Just saying, here's a random poll about what's supposed to happen in November, that doesn't really mean anything. The reason I am interested in a poll that I'm about to show to you, though, is that we're still experiencing whatever effect the pandemic is going to have on the election. From the very beginning, we've been saying it is not an open and shut case as to whether this will hurt or help him. It might change over time, and it might change based on his response to the crisis. And it appears that might be what's happening, because early on in the crisis, the first few weeks or so of it really hitting America hard, his favorability ratings, particularly in certain demographics, started to go up, including in the poll I'm about to show you. But that has not maintained itself. And so currently, and by the way, this is a PRRI analysis. It is primarily interested in different religious demographics. Currently, 2/3 of white evangelical Protestants, nearly half of white Catholics, and 44% of white mainline Protestants hold a favorable view of Trump, a significant decline from their March 2020 rating, so in the early response to the coronavirus. There, he was 11% higher with white evangelical Protestants. He was 12% higher with white Catholics. He was, it looks like, 18 points higher with white mainline Protestants. Now, he's still doing well among these groups in general, but that is a very large shift to experience in a 6-week period, in a 4-week period, something like that.
I love the term mainline Protestants. It's like, give me that Martin Luther. Give it right here. Just let me mainline some theses. But yeah, it's, first of all, I'm surprised. I get that, like, just because you are a Protestant doesn't mean that, you're technically a WASP, doesn't mean that you are a Republican one. But yeah, it's difficult in these times to look around and see that he is doing a good job. He is trying really hard to insulate himself from any blame. The question is, will people remember the ridiculousness that he brought up along the way later? And that is on the people running against him to message effectively, and to the same way Swift boat made its way into your parlance along the way, and no one really knew what it meant. Like, we have more to work with now. There is more to work with, like disinfectant. The word disinfectant should resonate through everyone's mind. Like, as ridiculous as it was, hydrochloroquine at least sounded like a medicine. Disinfectant. Mainline Protestants should remember that Trump told them to mainline disinfectant.
Yeah, 100%. And there's going to be more of that to go around. Really fast, I want to give you a little bit more information. I don't know if this is one of the polls that Trump was losing his mind over, but potentially might want to, at least, or might want to change his strategy as a result of this. I mean, how great would it be if seeing himself plummet in the polls led to him doing the right thing vis-a-vis coronavirus? That would be great. Since when has a poll had a positive outcome? But anyway, Trump's favorability in battleground states specifically, again, since March, has dropped from 53% on average to 38% on average. Among non-college graduates in battleground states, he's dropped 20 points in 1 month, putting it more in line with his favorability in 2019. So look, that does not mean that he is at all-time lows or anything like that. He had, among some of these groups, been rising, especially, again, during the early part of this pandemic, but that appears to not be holding out. And who knows what's going to happen, but if there was going to be something that was going to hurt you in the polls, this seems like the sort of thing that should have that effect. Being completely uncaring in the face of so much human suffering, presiding over 64,000 deaths and not seeming to care about it. Indeed, members of your administration declaring it to be a great victory. That should have a negative repercussions on your numbers, and it appears like it is.
Yeah. The goal of this administration was to get away from finally address, like what was happening at the tail end of the Obama administration was to get away from having to address very real, like by and large, racial issues in America, like the Black Lives Matter, like finally being able to get news coverage around the articulation of racial inequality in America was where we were at. And this Trump very successfully, I guess, shifted it away from that, shifted it back toward like, oh my God, to get everyone to say, just let me get back to the time when we were focused, when we were painfully focused, like we caused some pain in people who never wanted to address it, focus on things that affected a lot of people who had been oppressed, historically since slavery, right? But Trump got us into, oh my God, it's just Twitter and ridiculous attacks that don't mean anything. And as much as, and now people are dying because of something he is mismanaging.
Exactly.
Right? So now there are actual real consequences. And we don't have the luxury to go back to like, isn't his Twitter crazy? The tantrum of the day. Now it's like, you're killing people. Yeah. Your stupidity is killing people. And we really need you. Everyone in every state needs Trump to get the hell out of the way, to put him in the dustbin of history and move on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you alluded to this, but let's just make it really explicit. People are dying of the sort and in the places that more voters will see. Look, there were a lot of people who had a lot of empathy for, families being separated, kids being caged and dying on the border. There might be some people that are interested in our support that's killing civilians in Yemen, or the fact that he massively increased drone strikes and airstrikes in Syria that killed tons of people. Like all of this is a death count, but there's a lot of voters that are going to ignore that stuff or not prioritize that stuff. But now Americans are dying, so they're going to take it a little bit more seriously. For more political news, breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.